Hello, and welcome to another edition of Snyk Live. I'm your host, Brian Clark. I'm a developer advocate here at Snyk, and I'm excited to be here with you for this live session. We're going to be doing some live programming. We haven't really done a lot of that on the channel just yet, so I'm really excited for this one. And to help us do that, we have a Snyk ambassador, Tim, who's a software engineer and technical writer, goes by Plain Text Nerds on the interwebs, and is going to be helping us out. We're going to be doing some pipeline building and security testing and all kinds of fun stuff. So without further ado, let's bring on Tim now. Hey, Tim.
Hey, folks.
How's it going?
Hey. Yeah, it's pretty good, thanks. Yeah, excited to get started and have a interesting stream with you guys.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Before we get too far into it, though, I want folks to get to know you a little bit better, if that's all right with you. Does that sound good?
Sure. Yeah, sounds good.
So tell us a little bit about you, like your background, how you got started, maybe whatever you feel comfortable sharing, so folks can get more familiar.
So I've been programming professionally for about 15 years. Up until, just pre-pandemic, I was the lead engineer at De Beers working on their Diamond blockchain. And these days I'm a consultant and technical writer. Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun and it's interesting kind of times, really. So yeah. I
Nice,
stream relatively frequently on Twitch. I try to stream daily, but that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
It's all security code and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, that can be tough to stream every day. I feel you on that as a
Yeah.
streamer myself for my own channel. But it's awesome to have somebody on that also streams. I think this might be our first. So again,
really?
I'm really super excited about this one to see where it goes and whatnot. But dive in a little bit deeper into your background. What got you into programming, like, and in particular from there over that career that you've had so far? What got you into the security side of things?
So yeah, programming. It started on BBC Basic on a BBC Micro back in I forget when I was at primary school.
What's all that, bulletin boards or something you mean by BBC, or?
Oh no, so BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. They made a series of computers for homes and schools that we're talking way back now. This is like 80s, 90s-ish.
Okay.
They were still around in the 90s, but I think the program for it stopped back in the 80s. And yeah, there were these early computers. We're talking like DOS kind of days. And in order to do anything, you had to learn how to code. So it was, you had to, read a book and copy the code out that you wanted to run, and then it would run. So yeah, it started with that, and then Windows 95, 98, and picked up Python around that time when that came out, and then the pretty much the normal from there. So uni and freelancing through uni, and then went and became a digital nomad for a number of years.
Nice. Okay.
Spent 2 years in Australia, 6 in the Netherlands, and now I'm back in London. And it's
Wow, that sounds awesome. Digital
know.
nomad life and everything in there. That's cool.
Yeah, it's one of those things, it's I wouldn't have changed it, but it's not the best financial decision in your life to make.
Fair enough.
So
So then,
yeah,
so you picked up Python, and from there, how'd you get into the security side of things?
Just really being involved with companies that needed someone to pick that up. So mostly startups and stuff like that. So learning from requirement, really. So I did a lot of low-level network code at a startup called Nerdalize, where basically we put servers in people's homes and made a hot water system for them. So they got their heating and their hot water from server heat, effectively.
Wow.
And so we did 10 gig fiber to the home with that. That was a fun project. And so you can imagine having basically a distributed data center going to multiple people's homes. You have to be really on the ball with the security stuff. So
Yeah.
it's kind of how we got into that, really.
Wow.
And yeah, it was. I mean, Nerdlize was great. We did the world's first 10 gig fiber to the home installation as well for more than one home, I should say, because there were some people that had 10 gig fiber to the home back in the when was it, 2018, I think.
Okay.
Something like that. And yeah, we did 10 gig to multiple homes. So yeah, it was pretty cool stuff.
That definitely sounds like an interesting project, and I love the name Nerdalize. That's a cool company name.
Yeah, unfortunately we went bankrupt. Who would have thought putting servers in people's homes was expensive?
For sure, for sure. Well, cool. All right. Well, that was helpful to get to know your background, and I would love to dive deeper, but I do want to get into the meat of today's session. So we're going to be doing some building rather of a pipeline using GitLab, doing some security testing with Snyk, some programming and or evaluating of code, right? I believe.
Yeah,
Reviewing of
so
it.
we'll start off by looking through a project. It's got some security problems, and we're going to see how many we can identify ourselves, and then we'll see what we've missed and if a security pipeline can actually help us pick up a few more.
Okay.
But the kind of key takeaways here are that you can't do everything yourself, and you can't 100% rely on your pipeline. So, you have to have the best of both worlds. You have to teach yourself and have a pipeline there to catch the things that you miss.
Sweet, sweet. So I feel like I'm gonna be put on the spot here to like show some skills potentially in my chops, my security chops. Is that what you're saying?
If I was trying to identify all of the issues that I've intentionally put in, that would be a bit of a cop out, wouldn't it?
Right,
So,
right. Fair enough, fair enough.
let's see how many you find, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, well, it's not just me though. Those of you that are watching live are
Yeah, of
expected to
course.
help out here. And speaking of that, I see we have Gerald in the chat. We got Finite, good to see you. Hacker Kyle over on YouTube. Lamp Web Dev, good to see you as well. Dad,
Yeah, we've
what?
got a couple of people from my channel as well. So we've got Dad,
Sweet.
what's that?
Dad, what's that? Nice.
Some leet code there.
It took me a second to read the leet speak there, right? I was like, Dad, what that? So that's awesome. Love the name. Glad to see you here, and thanks for joining, everybody. Lamp Web Dev says, I see, and here I'm in 2022 and only have 250 megabits per second download and 50 up is what I'm assuming you mean by that, right? I'm around the same ballpark. In fact, I think you got higher upload speed than me, Lamp Web Dev, actually. So you should be happy about that.
I forget being in central London and sitting on a gig.
Yes.
Is cheating faps.
Maybe, yeah. I'm with Finite as well. I only have 20 up for me. And I think I'm at I never get the full amount, but I'm at 400 megabits per second down, something like that. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get into what we're gonna do today. Should we start sharing screen and everything like that?
Yeah, let's start, and we're gonna skip some of the boilerplate, and we'll start at the basic API. Now here we've got a really kind of cut down, simplified API. It's got two endpoints. You can think of this as being the basics for some kind of web store or any site that might have users, right? And so we've got here. Oh, I don't want to show you the fixed one yet.
One quick comment
from
the chat, real quick, Tim. You know what it's going to be, right? Can we zoom in a little bit?
Can
more?
we make the font bigger?
Yeah.
I suppose.
Then next is going to be, what theme are you using? No,
I don't even know.
You don't know?
Right, where are we? Editor. See, I'm not used to working on this other stream here. It's,
yeah. The joys of
online.
New
sitting
setups.
in, fully zoomed in. How's that for people? Big enough now? Or do we want it bigger still?
What do you think, Lamp Web Dev? Well, while we're waiting for a response, feel free to proceed and we'll discuss.
Sure. So here we've got a fairly basic user model, right? We've got a standard UID, so primary key there. Got a username. We've got a password field. We've got a biography and a flag to see if they're admin or not.
Okay.
So then moving on, in our API implementation here, we've got a get method and we've got a patch method. And, we're using SQLite at the moment, but it could be anything. It could be Postgres, doesn't really matter. Excuse me. So yeah, this is all the code that you'll need to look at. I'm gonna split that to the
Fair
right,
enough.
and let's see how many issues we can find in just this code. I'll give you. Let's go with 30 seconds, and we'll see how many you find in 30 seconds. And,
pressure's on.
Then we can go from there.
All right, I'm going to call out one right off the bat, but I also want to leave some space for chat to provide some answers in there. And there's going to be a delay probably with some latency, but
Sure.
probably, maybe some injection vulnerabilities there, because the fact that the input from the user or from that might be provided to the API is not being sanitized in any way.
Answer Lamp Web Dev's question though. The password is in plain text. This is it. It is called password. It is not called password hash. So
there you go.
Let's assume that it's in plain text.
Okay.
So you were saying, right?
I was saying that I believe that there's probably an injection vulnerability in there.
Mm-hmm. What kind of injections are we looking at, perhaps, with this code?
SQL injection, because you're just straight up plugging in the user input into the query itself.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of using like maybe what are they called? Stored procedures, maybe, or
sure. Or even just using the corrected method for uploading. So actually using templating properly.
Yeah.
Rather than using Python's F strings. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first set of fixes that we'd probably want to do here is essentially we're going to want to kind of use an ORM for a start, because that's going to give us a bunch of kind of pre-built kind of protections, so an object reference model.
Okay.
And so we've got our object already defined here. We're using Pony ORM. So if we go ahead and switch across to that, then we can take another look. So there's one more thing that I think everyone would miss here. In fact, tell you what, before we go there, let's go for a live test of this. So we've got it up and running. We've got the site here at the moment, and we've got Bill's perfectly innocuous bio.
Can we zoom in just a little bit more there?
Sure.
A couple times. There we go. Yeah.
So
beautiful.
My amazing web editing skills here, right? We can see my wonderful HTML and CSS.
Are you a designer,
skills.
Tim?
Of course I am.
I could tell.
I'm so glad you asked.
I'm saying this joking. I have the same set of skills. I'm a designer as well. I could produce this. That's the best I could do too.
So let's go ahead, and we mentioned that we have SQL injections. So let's go ahead and try a SQL injection here. I'm gonna skip the kind of like discovery phase of this attack. We're not going to look for what the model is, although in fact we can, because this query will do that. So in fact we could go ahead and submit that, and hey look, we've just discovered what the table actually looks like, right? So we can see here we've got the UID, we've got the username, we've got the fact that there's a password there, we've got the bio, and we've got this tasty looking flag here.
Tasty. I like the
so let's go ahead and do the second level of this injection.
So what's
So,
really quick though? Like, what's the big deal? I mean, you're just showing off the database table, right? Is that
well,
an
sure, but
issue?
the fact that we've managed one injection here means that we can manage a second injection.
Okay.
And now we can
Oh no.
see we're going to write to our biography, like our biography, we're Bill, right?
Yeah.
We're going to write the username and password of a user that is admin.
Okay.
And there we can see that Ted
Oh
has
no.
the password. Now, this is a secure password.
It looks like it.
The password itself might be very secure, but it's certainly not when it's in plain text, right?
I bet Dad,
Um,
what's that? You know, one of the viewers in the chat right now really appreciates the leet speak password that Ted has there.
yeah. So, well, what could we do with that information? Well, obviously we can now log in as admin, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one problem. But what else is up with this information? Well, we could actually just wipe out the entire username, well, the entire users table if we wanted.
Oh, like
Now,
little Bobby tables?
yeah,
Little
little
Bobby
Bobby
drop tables?
tables. We're not going to do that at the moment because we need Bill to continue existing.
Okay.
Um,
Bill can appreciate that.
And yes, of course, as Lamp Web Dev has indicated, we could make ourselves admin as well,
Mm.
potentially. That would be harder because in this case, we're just creating a query that's writing into the biography field, right? So we're writing into a field that, we don't need to have nested queries with. Now, on Python, for example, with the current SQLite interface, you can't do like chained queries. So the traditional way of kind of just writing directly in and having our own kind of like large queries here, in the same kind of format as the Bobby Tables one. For those that maybe we could have someone
Yeah,
post
I'll
the
get a
link
link going.
for everyone who doesn't know that reference, by the way. That is kind of mitigated at a Python driver level in this case. So the DB API 2, I believe, maybe 3, I forget. The current Python database API level for SQLite is actually, it protects you against that, but it doesn't protect you against these kind of nested queries. So you can't have chained queries, but you can have nested ones. And so this is, the kind of injection that you can do with that.
Okay.
So we can go ahead and fix all of that. I'm just gonna do a sneaky thing here and just drag that over because I don't want to reveal all of the fixes because there was one that people may have missed. So I'm just gonna grab
Was that a pun intended? Sneaky thing?
I don't know what was the fun. So what we're gonna do is paste in these fixes. In fact, tell you what, I'll do it the other way. We'll take this and I'm gonna pop it down here, drag this across. Sorry about this. I'll just
It's all good.
be a moment longer because I just need to change which one we're importing. So where are we?
You can put it on your
API
screen. I hid our screens too, by the way.
fixed API. Okay, great. I have multiple screens, so I can do that, but that's fine. Right, so
Let me know when you're
we're
ready
now
for me to
importing
share.
fixed API, and okay, so yeah, I think we're ready to go with this now.
Okay.
So now we're using the ORM. So we fixed our SQL injection vulnerabilities. So now if we go ahead and let's just stop and rerun just to make sure. If we now go over to our demo site and we try this again, we now see the query itself in the biography. So now it is an innocuous query. Or is it?
Uh-oh. What do you mean, or is it? That should be enough.
Funny. What about a JavaScript injection?
Not funny.
Hello world.
Oh, okay.
So how would we go about fixing that? Well, any ideas from people in the chat or
What do you
yourself?
think, chat? I see Gerald. I think he's reacting to the XKCD.
We need a facepalm.
We need a facepalm emoji.
Catch us up.
Lamp up Dev says
Disable
disable
JavaScript.
JavaScript. Yeah, that's a good idea. And the werewolf, Tim, you're just gonna have to fix it.
So I actually snuck this out here. We can use a library called Bleach to bleach our eyeballs. I mean, not
What
our
a
eyeballs.
name!
We can bleach the code, and so now, if someone tried to do that, so I'll just Bill's even.
Mixing up people now.
Let's just say Bill's bio, because I can't spell innocuous off the top of my head without a spell checker anyway. So let's try that SQL injection again. Not SQL, sorry, JavaScript injection. And now we see that it doesn't work. And the reason that it doesn't work, if we connect here, is we'll notice that it's been escaped neatly.
Nice.
And
For
so the
HTML.
reason that we might want to use Bleach versus other ones is that Bleach is going to allow us to, well, essentially it allows us to define things that we want to allow through. So maybe we want to allow through Markdown, but not HTML, for example, for reasons like this, basically.
Bleach is an
so
open source library for Python that people
Yep.
can pull in, install. You define through your requirements.txt kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Bleach is pretty awesome. But there's even things that we've missed so far, and this is actually one of the exact reasons why Snyk exists.
Sounds like an infomercial. But wait, there's more.
So let's actually take a look at this project under Snyk. So I've imported it here. In this case, I'm using the web-based UI. So I went over to Add Project. I went to GitLab, and then I added this project in through the UI. I'm not going to show that because Snyk has got access to some things
Private
that I'm
project.
not going to show on stream.
Yeah. All right. We have docs and stuff like that and videos for folks to go check out if they want to learn how to import a project from GitLab into Snyk.
Exactly. So we'll notice that we've got a medium here and we've got a high. So our high is probably to do with, oh, look at that. It's to do with DOM injections and cross-site scripting risks. So that's something that we should fix. I'm not going to, because that's not, we've detected it. We could fix it. But let's leave that one be for now. Whoops. 1 second. This is even the wrong code. Hang on. Let's take this off the screen.
All right, hide the screen.
That's a previous version of the same tutorial, to be honest, that based on Django. Here we go. This is the one we want. Okay, so here we go. We've got the requirements.txt that's been scanned. So we've scanned all through this, and we noticed that the Fast API version that we're using has got a vulnerability. So not only can we potentially have vulnerabilities in our code, but there can also be vulnerabilities in the libraries that we're using. So in this case, it's to do with me using an out-of-date version of Fast API. So that is, of course, where we all want to be using Snyk. But we know that everyone who's here is, obviously a fan of Snyk, or at least a user of Snyk at this point. Or they might not be, but they should be, if they're not already.
They should be. You heard it here, folks. Straight from Tim's mouth to your ear holes.
So yeah, that's one side of things. But a lot of these problems and a lot of the issues that we've detected so far can be kind of caught a little bit earlier in some cases. And not everything, admittedly, but some things can be. So here I've got a little thing called Prospector. Now, Prospector is a linter, so it's a form of static analysis. And what it's going to do is it's going to go and look through a bunch of things, find issues where we're perhaps not compliant with various formatting standards like PEP8, but it's also going to check for known kind of risks and vulnerabilities in our code that perhaps other systems might not pick up. So, if there's, for example, a known pattern that, is an issue, then it might pick it up in kind of like the pre kind of run stage, right? Before we merge this through to the master branch.
Okay.
And a lot of these things will overlap with things that Snyk detects, but this is something that, relying on a single tool, pretty is an interesting comment there. But yes, similar kind of things, linting, checking formatting. So yes, Prettier, ESLint, etc. They're all very similar things. Prospector kind of wraps this for Python. So it wraps a whole bunch of really useful tools like Dodgy and Bandit and Macabre and other things. So it's going to kind of like scan our system, but we don't want to be running this on our own machine all the time, because that means that we have to remember to run things on our machine before we do a commit, right?
Yeah.
And
I'll forget.
Who has
Knowing
time
me,
for that?
I'll forget, man. I'll
Yeah,
like, just push to production on Friday. Let's go.
Well, I'm not sure I'd do that, but
Oh, I will.
let's go ahead and move forward. It is .gitlab ci y. I always find it trouble with YAML files, because some people do them with YML and some of them with YAML as one whole word. So what we're going to do is we're going to now kind of build a pipeline that's going to do some of this stuff for us. Now, of course, we've got this imported to Snyk, so that's going to do a lot of the protection for us on that front. But, maybe we want to catch some things in a different way. Maybe we want to block a commit from being merged through. And so for that, we need to have something a bit earlier in the pipeline. So that's where our GitLab CI pipeline is going to come in here. Of course, you can use other platforms. You can use, GitHub. You can use Circle CI. You name it. There's hundreds of CI pipelines out there. My preference is for GitLab because, it's comfortable, to be honest.
Okay.
But yeah. So what we can do is let's do some composition analysis as well. So we're going to set up two stages here. We're going to have a static analysis stage and a composition analysis stage. So when it comes to in fact, do we want the composition? Oh, we don't have a Docker container yet, so let's skip that one. We'll just do the static analysis today. So what we might want to do is run this prospector thing, right, as part of our pipeline. So let's take a look at what a GitLab CI pipeline looks like in general. We've got a few key stages. I can't speak. We've got a the third time I said. We've got a few key sections to think about here.
Okay.
We've got the stages, which is where we define different things that we want to run in parallel. And then we've got the actual thing that we want to run. So these you can think of as groups, and it runs top to bottom. So if you have something else, maybe you want to have a build, maybe you want to have unit tests. Maybe the unit test should probably be before the build. So, you can go and put that in. If I can spell. Um,
Spelling and speaking.
so I don't know. Speaking, you'd think I'd be better at this. Been speaking and writing for a lot of my life already. Anyways,
I feel you.
so you define stages that you want things to be run in, and then you define the jobs to run.
Okay.
So let's just start and focus on a static analysis stage here. So we've got a linter here, and in this case, we're going to use prospector, and we're just going to overwrite the entry point, and we're going to set our before script and script here. So our before script is going to go ahead and do a pip install and make sure that all of our requirements are present, so that any libraries and things that need to be picked up are installed.
Okay.
And then we're going to run prospector, and we're going to look for any issues in our app here.
So this is all essentially within the machine that you're, well, this is in GitLab then. So GitLab spins up a machine that will then pull in your code, make sure it has everything installed in terms of your requirements using pip. And then as a result of that, it's going to install Prospector, I assume, right? So then it can then run the
Yep.
Prospector script that you're defining right there under that script tag, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
Okay.
in fact, that reminds me, I don't think I've put prospector into this. Yes, I have.
Good thing we brought that up.
Prospector. What is the current prospector version? This is a good question. You know what? I will use another Snyk tool to find the current prospector version.
I think I have an idea what that tool is. It's a free, readily available on the web for anyone and everyone to go evaluate open source libraries for their various languages and ecosystems. It is Snyk Advisor. Am I right?
Yes, and I have
Ding, ding,
got
ding,
the
ding,
link ready.
It's snyk.io/advisor.
Thank you.
I'll drop it in the chat for everybody too, so they can check it out. But folks that have at least seen some streams with me know how much I love and adore that service, and wish that I had it many years ago to save me a ton of time and my company a ton of money.
Yes, it's a really useful tool. In fact, I'm just going to grab it from your thing rather than trying to type, because apparently I can't type right now either.
You know, I learned of another one too that my boss Laron pointed out to me called deps.dev, deps.dev, which also
I don't know that one.
yeah, it's pretty slick. It offers a little bit more or different. It offers similar, but also some different data and visibility to things like how many other projects. It dives deeper into like how many projects are dependent upon it, and then you can see like if there's any major ones that are out there, or major companies that might be depending on that library. Pretty interesting. So yeah, so for folks that don't know, Snyk Advisor helps you, as you can see on Tim's screen here. It gives you like a health score, and lets you know, and that health score is evaluated based on or calculated based on a few pieces of criteria, a few data points on like how popular the library is, how often it's being maintained, how strong the community is around it, and then the security, obviously the security aspect of it. Are there any known vulnerabilities in certain versions of that library or package? So yeah, check that out.
Yeah, so it's a pretty cool tool. So let's go ahead and fix the version of Fast API that we're using as well at the same time. So I can just tell this, approximately equal to 065. I happen to know 0653 is clean. We should really update to a much newer version, but I'm not going to do that in case it breaks something.
Okay.
We'll deal with that later. So prospector and pipeline.
Quick question for you is I'm not as familiar with the little the tilde in your requirements at DXC. Does that mean only update to certain, like, is it using semantic versioning and like that
Yeah,
kind of
so
stuff?
that's just gonna go for the latest which one is it?
Patch versions?
Major minor patch. So it's gonna go for the latest patch.
Okay.
In PyProject, that would look like this, and that would be the latest.
Okay.
So that's, again, just going to update this one. And so if we wanted to also add, if we wanted to do this via here instead, we would do prospector is,
And then
normally I use poetry, but for the sake of, having things integrated with the,
GitLab.
well, actually this one was making sure that it showed up here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's probably because I don't have things in the right directory, but it wasn't picking up the toml just earlier. But that's almost certainly my fault. So 1.7, well, we can just say 1.7 there, and that would do nicely. So that's the same as well. So what have we got? We've got the stage, we've got the linter set, and we're going to do some static analysis. And in this case, we're going to use Prospector. Someone maintains a version of this as a Docker thing for us, so we don't have to make our own.
Okay.
And yeah, we're just going to install our requirements, and then we're going to run Prospector, and we're going to allow failure. The reason that we're going to allow failure here is because when you first set this kind of thing up for a project, you're probably adding this to an existing like repo that maybe is your repo for work, right? So you've got like one of your main projects that you're working on, and you don't want to stop everyone from being able to merge while you fix all of the backlog of technical debt that's probably accumulated over the years. So when we're adding new features like this to the pipeline, we probably want to allow failure initially, and then as soon as it no longer fails, we remove the allow failure, or we set it to false.
Gotcha. That's good advice. For my life, I have that permanently set to true. Just saying.
Allow failure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta.
Yeah, same.
It's a corny joke right now. All right, moving on.
Yeah, so now we've gone and pushed this. What should happen is if we hop over to our GitLab here, we should now see that we've got a pipeline running.
Nice.
And this pipeline is running our linter. And so what this is going to do is it's going to grab us a GitLab runner when it's available.
Can you zoom in just a little bit as well there?
Yep.
Perfect.
So it's going to grab us a GitLab runner when it's available. We've been allocated to one. So what it's doing now is it's pulling the Docker image, in this case, the Ckliman prospector, I guess, or Ckliman. I don't know how that's supposed to be pronounced.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to grab that, and once it's loaded in, it's going to run through and attempt to run things. So this has said it can't find the prospector profile.yaml. Did this copy across? This is a question. It might not have. Hang on. This is the problem with not first praying to the demo gods. So this should be done before every live demo of things. Let's have a look. Prospector profile YAML. Is that not where I saved it? Prospector profile YAML / prospector profile YAML. It's there. Why is it not seeing it? Intriguing.
I'm not as familiar with Python, but I see your tab open to the prospector profile.yaml file and showing in red. Does that mean anything?
That means I haven't committed it.
Oh, okay. There you go.
That would be why. Yep. So let's go ahead and commit that. And let's call this profile. Yeah, there we go. That would be the problem. Thank you.
No problem. The beauty of live coding and pair programming.
Yeah, pair programming. It's always helpful. Okay, so this time, we have a merge request. Who has merge requested? Oh, Sneaker's merge request.
It's like you. It
There you
looks like
go.
you.
This is this would be Snyk doing this for us. So it's automatically gone through and made the merge request to the first version that didn't have the exploit available. Now we've gone and patched that manually, so I'm actually going to close this merge request. But yeah, that's the kind of handy dandy stuff. Even forget that it's there sometimes.
There you go.
Just notice at the time that we have a the thing ready. So yeah, now that the pipeline should run, let's start taking a look at another tool that we'll want to run next. Okay, so here we notice that it's found 34 more issues for us. So that's 34 more issues that we missed.
Oh my goodness.
So this is partly coming from MyPy not knowing about, or rather PyFlakes and MyPy not knowing about PonyORM. So we can go ahead and tell it to ignore those.
So it's kind of like a false positive then in that regard?
Yeah, so in this case, it's that they it's not so much a false positive as these two are trying to kind of understand things, and we're using a star import. So we could either tell it to no-sec these so that it's not using security scanning for this, any form of security scanning for that. But what we could do instead is we could just manually import all of these like this. So instead of importing all of them with a star import, we can do manual imports, which will tell them, hey, look, this is definitely coming from here. And that should fix that for us.
Okay, cool.
So that's that one. We've probably got some issues over here. In fact, what we're going to do is that one of the issues that it will have is that we don't have fixed API pushed. So what we'll do is we'll just use, oh, I need to cut that. I meant to copy it. What we'll do is we'll just overwrite the broken API with the fixed one. And that should fix a bunch of the issues that it's going to have noticed.
Is Bleach installed or defined in your requirements as well then? That update?
Bleach in the requirements. Let's have a look. Requirements. Yes.
Okay. What's PyCharm telling you there then? Duplicate code.
Oh, this is because we're importing Bleach as Bleach, which we don't need to do.
Okay.
I wonder how we ended up doing that the first time. It's weird. Anyway, yeah, we can just import Bleach and that's fine. And what it's telling us now is we've got a duplicate because PyCharm knows that I've got both of these files. So I can actually remove, where are we? App fixed API. I can remove that file now. We'll just delete it anyway, and then we'll come in here and we'll just import router as API router. There we go. Okay, so that's one set of fixes done. So we know that those should be in now. So in error skipping analyzing PonyORM module installed but missing library stubs. So this is what I was expecting. This one basically means that MyPy just doesn't have the type annotations for PonyORM. There is a separate library that we can import to add that, but we can just tell it to ignore that, and that's fine. Okay. So to get it to ignore that,
for folks that are not familiar with MyPy in this case.
So MyPy is a kind of like it's a static analysis way of doing type checking in Python. So it's just going through and working out what is, essentially what is acceptable types based on the code. So if the type annotation says this should be an int, and we pass it a string, MyPy is going to find that and say, hey, this should be an int, or
Okay.
you should change the type annotation to string.
Yeah, makes sense.
So that way we kind of catch potential issues pretty early. So yeah, that's a good point. It's a pretty useful tool. In this case, we're going to bypass this with a nosec.
What does that mean? What is that doing?
So nosec tells it, don't do any security testing on this import.
No. Why would you do that?
So in this case, I'm wanting it for the side effect of, and I don't know if it's in this version of Prospect or the latest version might not allow it, but a side effect of doing nosec is that it's going to skip the MyPy as well. But I suppose we could just disable MyPy. But that means I need to look up the, or we could just ignore that one. Let's have a look. Python prospector, disable MyPy. In case anyone is wondering, yes, I Google things because Googling things is, pretty important.
Yeah. Still, regardless of your level of experience.
Exactly. Like a lot of people think, oh, I'm being paid, I shouldn't be Googling stuff now. And it's like, well, actually,
Well,
if you're not Googling stuff, you're wasting time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Well, and trying to commit all this stuff to memory too is like there's just too much to try and hold in that hard drive of our minds, right? So
yeah, definitely. I'm
Lamp
actually
says
just gonna
they Google more
ignore
than they
this
code
issue this time. Yeah, of course. It's
and
a
review.
perfectly valid thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna skip that one. We're just gonna ignore that error in the
Okay.
in the linter for now and pretend that it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Okay, so what have we got then? We've got a D104 here that's telling us that we're missing a doc string at the start of our public package. Well, in this case, we're not releasing a library, and it's fairly obvious what it is, so we don't actually need that doc string here because this is just a website.
Yeah.
So what we could do is we could go and tell Prospector to actually ignore that one at a file level. So this would be coming in from, where are we? PyDoc style, and it's saying D104. So we look for PyDoc style, which is somewhere in here. I have to find the right one. It might
So this
be
is like the whole rule set, right?
Yeah, so here's a big rule set. Which one was renamed? So it was either one of the PEP ones or something like that that got renamed to PyDoc style. I think it may have been PEP 8 or PEP 257.
And those are all just like different Python style standards, right? Code style guidelines that people will follow
257.
in the community.
Yeah, so these are, so in Python, you've got Python enhancement proposals or PEPs. And PEP 8 is one of the most well-known and oldest ones. This is to do with general formatting and structuring of Python code. And then you've got newer, more advanced ones that kind of extend that, like PEP 257. So in this case, you can just tell it to disable and then the rule that you want to disable. So 104. Gotcha. The reason this is still called PEP 257, the library itself used to be called PEP 257. And as the as things moved on, these two libraries, so PEP 257 and PEP 8 libraries, got more popular and better kind of at search engine optimization than the actual Python doc itself. So people couldn't find the Python doc when they were searching for the Python doc.
Yeah.
So the two libraries agreed to rename themselves accordingly so that they wouldn't be kind of like occluding the actual documentation. So that's why it's still 257 in the config file, but the program itself that's running is coming up as PyDoc style here.
Cool.
So the other things, it has noticed in this previous version of our unfixed API that we had the SQL injection. So it found both of those SQL injections for us. It's noticed that we imported something that we haven't used, which in this case was decimal. I've already removed that, so we're moving forward there. And what else? DB entity is not defined. So here, DB entity. So this is DB, which database, and so this is now correctly defined. So that's not an issue anymore. And then let's have a look. What else do we have? Pydantic, missing docstring in public nested class. Okay, so that one we're going to disable as well because we don't actually care about that one. So in fact, why is it picking that one up? That's kind of weird. Right, yeah, sorry. We didn't cover this at all. This is the Pydantic model. We'll go into that in a bit if we have some time, but otherwise we'll kind of skip over it and pretend that that's not an issue. But
that's what I do all the time in my project. Just pretend it's not an issue.
I mean, that's literally what I'm doing right now, is disabling things and pretending
Ignore
they're
this.
not an issue.
Yeah. Push it through.
You'll notice that my default file had a bunch of things that I, by default, ignore.
Yeah.
That's mostly because there's some ones, so some of the Python enhancement proposals actually conflict. They have conflicting rules. And the reason for that is the rule actually says pick one of these two. So you have two separate rules that technically can't exist together. And the reason is that you're supposed to pick one style or the other, but not both.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's and then yeah, from the final thing here that we're going to get rid of is trailing new lines. So or rather the lack thereof. So here we've got a few too many. But here, for example, we don't have one.
I've seen that quite a bit. I'm curious your opinion while you're addressing that. I'm curious your opinion on it. Like, have you found? I haven't looked it up. I could look it up myself, but off the top of your head, if you know, is there a reason why that's like an important thing for
having
styling?
a trailing new line?
Yeah.
So if memory serves, it goes back to the old console days. Like if I pull up an old, like a standard kind of like Linux terminal in this case, right? And let's say that I wanted to, can everyone see this? Is this a good enough font size? I think it should be the same. So yeah, let's say that I wanted to, for example, cat a file. So cat being basically just read the file into the terminal for us. Let's cat the main.py, right? If I didn't have the empty new line at the end, then this would be in front of the terminal string here. So for example, if I go ahead and remove that empty new line and save it, and then clear and rerun, you'll notice now it looks like this.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where that comes from as a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I mean, how many people are working in terminals these days? I mean, I could do this in Vim if I wanted and go ahead and put in the new line and stuff, but like there's very few of us that actually work in things like Vim anymore. And yes, I do know how to exit Vim.
I just saw it happened on stream. Proof. There are quite. I've been surprised. But there are quite a lot of. I've been surprised in the sense of I don't know. I don't know why I'm saying that. So, well, based on like you would assume that people want to maybe work in a more uh richer UI based tool, but a lot of people don't. And I've been seeing
Yeah,
more and more people using something like Vim or alternatives.
yeah.
And
Vim,
quite
the
honestly,
age-old Vim or Emacs
yeah, and
is
quite honestly, when you
still
watch them
alive and
working with
well.
that, the efficiency at which they can move around and control that tool is I'm impressed by it. So
Yeah,
more props to them.
yeah. Definitely, definitely. I mean, I'm an evil Emacs user when I am in the terminal,
Yeah.
which is a bit of a joke for everyone who uses Emacs and knows of evil Emacs. For those that don't, it's Vim. So I can say that I use Emacs, just evil Emacs. It's the ultimate solution to the debate of Vim versus Emacs. But yeah, this is it's I prefer PyCharm because of the plugins and integrations and the fact that if I'm working with someone in another country, we've got the code with me stuff
Yeah.
and I've got a built-in debugger and stuff. And yeah, sure, I can set that up in Vim or in Emacs, but yeah, I just don't have time.
Sure.
This
Yeah.
is the same reason
Personal.
why I don't use VS Code.
It's personal
Like,
preference,
yes,
right?
I
You
could,
already
but
you're already comfortable with PyCharm. You're efficient with it. It gets the job done. Why mess with that right now? Right.
exactly. And, I write in frequently four languages, so Python, C++, C Sharp, and Go. So, having different setups for each of those that's inconsistent is just a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So, I don't, am I allowed to swear on your channel? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you
Anyways,
do what you want, man. Like, I don't mind, but we'll see. Maybe it'll get cut from
um,
the video, though. I don't know. We'll see.
yeah, so like in general, when it comes to different IDEs, the JetBrains tooling is expensive, but I use it because it's consistent. So, if I'm working in Go, then I'm in Goland and it is consistent and I know where everything is and I don't have different versions of plugins and things that work differently than if I'm in PyCharm. It's all the same ecosystem, it's all the same like way of working. So, I can write in four languages, one user experience, and just saves me time.
Yeah.
Hashtag not sponsored.
No, yeah, no problem. Makes sense though. Makes sense. So we
Yeah.
are over the hour, which is okay. We can go a little bit longer, but
Well,
is there
we've
anything
fixed all of the key problems, I think. So now we've got
perfect?
issues with library stubs only coming from MyPy. Got a couple of minor things from MyPy again. MyPy is nice, but it makes some errors sometimes, and every time it's missing like actual type stubs, then it kind of gets pissy about it. But we can ignore the MyPy stuff, and yeah, I think generally speaking, we've kind of tested everything.
Sweet.
And yeah, the only other thing that I would say is, this isn't the end of the pipeline, right? This isn't where you would stop. You'd build in your unit tests. Perhaps you've got like custom things that you want, like custom rules that aren't covered by any tool that you'd want to build in. So maybe you want to have semgrep in there. Perhaps you want to have the Snyk CLI in that's going to, stop the merge request if Snyk detects something. One of the issues with things like Prospector is these libraries get updated slightly slower, whereas the Snyk CLI is going to pull the latest rule set from the Snyk website and, well, API rather.
Mm.
And, then, you've got that live in there. And yeah, custom rules, semgrep, which is pretty cool. And yeah, of course, you want to be doing other testing. So yeah,
Like unit testing, integration testing, maybe
exactly.
accessibility testing, if you have a UI and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously my UI needs accessibility testing, and other things like so we've done some static analysis security testing using both linters in this case and Snyk, but once it's up and running, you want to be testing things like the actual API itself, because something that's very difficult to detect in a static analysis is things like, okay, well, does this API allow me to access an admin interface or an admin endpoint
Mm.
with no credentials or with regular user credentials? And so that's where dynamic analysis security testing comes in. So I think you've had people from StatCorp on here before, right?
Yeah.
On the channel, and yeah, so for example, that's exactly where you'd use something like StatCorp or Zap, the Z attack proxy, which is kind of what StatCorp's based on, but slightly not. I'm not entirely sure what the relationship is there, but I know that they sort of use Zap somewhere in the scanner, in
And
Hallmark
Zap is
scanner.
from OWASP, right? Open Web Application Security Project.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, it's that's more or less it, I think.
Okay, sweet.
You know,
So if we
yeah,
could summarize what we covered today. Well, one, we learned a little bit about you and got to know you, Tim, which was great. We talked about GitLab and setting up. Well, one, we got to know your project first, right? This API that's intentionally vulnerable. We analyzed it, and both myself and viewers that were here live were able to share some thoughts on what we thought was vulnerable about it. In particular, we identified SQL injection, at least just by eyeing from there, right? And
yeah,
then we started running things locally to evaluate that. So between uh, Snyk and Prospector, we're able to help raise alerts to us about vulnerabilities in that code. And then you set that up in GitLab for your pipeline so that instead of you always having to run this stuff locally, and remember to do that, you can have some continuous integration tooling to do that when you commit to your main branch or whatever that may be, your main source control management tooling, um, so that that can then do all those same steps and alert you to that. And you could potentially block things from being merged then, but in this case of like maybe you're in an existing project you shared, right? You don't want to
yeah,
block your teammates from continuing their work while you're addressing maybe security issues at the same time, right?
yeah,
So,
exactly.
did that cover everything? Did I summarize it well in terms of what we
Yeah,
learned?
pretty much. Yeah.
Perfect.
So yeah, one thing that I might want to do from this point on is to go and actually set up deployment stuff as well, and get it deployed somewhere, and then have the dynamic analysis testing and stuff on top. Yeah,
I like the sound of that, and that also sounds like a potential future stream with you, maybe. We
yeah,
can
yeah.
we can continue that on potentially. What do you say?
Yeah, we could use Humanitech, which is one of my main clients, to actually launch this on a Kubernetes cluster, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that does sound pretty cool. Well, I look forward
So yeah,
to working with you to get that going, and I'm sure folks watching this are going to be excited to look forward to that as well. Thank you so much for being here. Is there anything that we can help plug? I'll plug your stream. So shout out Plain Text Nerds,
yeah,
twitch.tv/plaintext nerds, right?
yep. There's goip.network, which is a little kind of side project of mine. It's an open source, not for profit IP address localization platform that is, pretty much free. It's as close to free as I can make it. So it's free for 10,000 requests a day, and if you sponsor it, then you get unlimited. Apparently, it's broken, so I need to spend some time fixing that,
No
or
worries.
at least it's not loading on my site on my page at the moment.
Fine.
Looks like I'm having a problem with one of the map services. But yeah, the API is still up. It's just the mapping service that's down. which is, open mapping. It's out of my control. OpenStreetMap.
No worries. Well, that's cool stuff.
Yeah, that's
So go check that out. Everyone that's watching this, tune in to future streams that we're gonna have here. Thank you, Tim, so much for joining us and helping out. Stick around. I'm gonna have you in the background really quick while I close things out. Sound good?
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning into the stream today. We hope you had some fun. I'm pretty sure you did have some fun. You learned some new things, maybe had a laugh or two as well. That's my 2 things I set out for when we do these. So hopefully we hit on one or both of those. Until next time, be sure to, if you're watching on YouTube, if you made it this far, like the video and subscribe maybe to the channel if you'd like, so that way you can be notified of new videos and live streams like this that are coming up. And if you're on Twitch, follow, turn the notifications on if you will, or don't. I don't really like notifications, so I totally understand. But be sure to do that so that you can get in touch with us more when we have more live streams in the future coming up the rest of this week, going into every week basically. We got new streams, new shows, new videos going out, and blogs. Snyk.io/blog. Lots of great content going out on there. But thanks so much for tuning in. We hope to see you next time. Have a good day wherever you are in the world. Bye. Peace out. End the broadcast. See ya.